Today, I'll be talking to you about the legendary soldier William Sinclair Tuck and his bravery during the Battle of Somme. To begin, William was an only child to the parents of Joseph C. Tuck and Mary Jane Davis. He was born in 1893 in Toronto, Ontario, and was raised in what is now known as Old Oakville. On his mother's side, his uncle, William Sinclair Davis, was the mayor of Oakville. During high school at Upper Canada College, William decided to enlist in the Canadian military. He enlisted November 20th, 1914, and was placed in the Army's 2nd Trench Mortar Battery. In the early 1900s, the town of Oakville was quite small and was surrounded by marshland, orchards, and Lake Ontario. Oakville citizens would have to ride horses to get around, and there was a bank located close to the pier in downtown Oakville. Oakville's first post office was built in 1835, and to this day, the building is still standing. William Sinclair Tuck would have had to walk these streets and enter these historic buildings to collect mail and make purchases. Near Lake Ontario, the hitch posts for horses have also been maintained for their historical appeal. To prepare for war, William had to do mandatory training before leaving to go to France. The training for war was 3 months of physical endurance, as well as the basics like how to hold a gun and take cover. Going to war was very exciting for all the soldiers because at the time they thought war was glorious and exciting. The soldiers were transported by bus to the port and overseas in large shipping vessels. As the war progressed, the soldiers remaining were transported by U-boats and submarines. The Battle of Somme was an offensive battle fought by the British and the French Empire against the Germans. It occurred between July 1st and November 18th, 1916 in Somme, France. There were 300,000 deaths in total and 420,000 casualties on both sides. The British and French alliance won, but unfortunately William did not survive. William Sinclair Tuck died in action October 30th, 1916, at the age of 23. He was in the 2nd Trench Mortar Battery at the time he died. Military records clearly recounted the circumstances of his death. Returning from an inspection of mortar positions on the Sur front, accompanied by Lieutenant Gordon and Lieutenant Bell, Captain William Sinclair Tuck and 2 above-mentioned officers were struck by high explosive shells 300 paces from their billet. Captain Tuck was carried from the dressing station unconscious and died a few minutes later. First aid was promptly rendered and everything was done possible by Officer R.A.M.C. William was buried in France at the Sources-aux-Bois Communal Cemetery. His memorial is in Oakville at St. Jude Memorial. In conclusion, William fought for peace and sacrificed his life for Canada. Like many young Canadian men, his dedication to the war effort allowed many of us the freedom we enjoy today living in modern Oakville, Ontario. And now, I'm going to walk you through the parts of Oakville where William Tuck enjoyed his younger years before going to high school and joining the war effort. Here's the Bank of Toronto that William Sinclair Tuck may have gone to in his early ages as a young man. We're at Oakville Pier, and William Sinclair Tuck would have spent his time here as a young man. Here's the Oakville post office where William Sinclair Tuck would take his mail and ship it out to his friends and family. We're here at the St. Jude Memorial, and William Sinclair Tuck was remembered here. We could not find his memorial stone, but his actual grave is in France.
So Graham, a really interesting project on William Sinclair Tuck and his service in World War One. During your research of Private Tuck, did you learn anything about your own family and its connections to World War One?
Yep. In fact, my great grandfather James Leeper served in World War One, as well as William Sinclair Tuck over here, and they both served in the battalion district.
Right, but different battalions. They were in different battalions.
He was in the 3rd Battalion, and James was in the, William was in the 2nd Battalion.
Now, James fought under in the Canadian artillery. Your great grandfather, he would have served as part of the Scottish artillery. In the name of, can you reread the card of his where he came from? The first line.
C Company, 3rd Battalion, Royal Scots, Mulligan, Ireland.
Royal Scots. So he was with the Royal Scottish artillery or some form of the military from Scotland.
Yeah.
Now, interesting, William S. Tuck, he died October 30th, 1916.
Yeah.
What's the date on that card when your great-grandfather went to war?
1918.
Right. And we know that World War I ended in 1918, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So interesting that your great-grandfather, he was arriving into war at the very end of the war.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what are the implications? I mean, for William S. Tuck's family, he didn't survive.
Yeah.
Your great-grandfather did. So what does that mean for your family and the freedoms that our family has enjoyed?
Well, our family has enjoyed like many pastimes like together, and it's all because of the Canadian soldiers back in World War One. If it wasn't for us winning the war, as well as Britain and France, it would have been a tough road for us to create peace with other countries.
And you're pretty lucky that your grandfather survived, great-grandfather survived.
Yeah.
If he hadn't survived, what would our family exist?
Our family would not exist now.
Right, had he not survived. Yeah. So pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
So
very fortunate.
Why don't you just put his picture right up next on the computer to William Tuck so we can see it. Yeah, so there you go. A real-life artifact next to what you researched.
Yep.
Any closing thoughts on the project?
I thought it was very interesting for the project how we got to figure out how William Sinclair Tuck grew up in Oakville and like walked the same streets that I've walked before, and I thought it was very interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you.